Welcome to Media Makers Spotlight from Women in Film and Video in Washington, D.C. We bring you conversations with industry professionals for behind the screens, insight, and inspiration.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Media Makers Spotlight. I'm your host for this episode, Tara Jabbari, and today I have Anna Campbell, an actress from Portland, Oregon. She moved to Los Angeles to start her career, and she was on shows like Veronica Mars and NCIS. But then she realized that producing and directing were essential in having a significant voice in the stories being made. So she fully embraced that and is now a hyphenate. Therefore, she released her first feature film, Nora, in 2025, in which she was the writer, the director, the producer, the distributor, and the lead actor. So welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here.
So Anna, you and I met first at Script DC, an annual event held at WIF DC, and you did a full day workshop called Greenlight Yourself. It was like a master class. Could you kind of share a little bit more about what that was about? Because I took it and I want to talk about it a little bit.
Yes. First of all, what an impressive weekend that was put on by WIF DC, because that level of support expressed community-wide is so very much the thing that we as filmmakers need. You can't make any art of this size without a community surrounding you. And the way you guys support each other was truly a beautiful thing to step into. And I was terrified because I didn't realize that I had a full day's worth of stuff to talk about, and we could have run another 8 hours, because it's just not a simple topic, right? The idea of looking at the resources that you do in fact have, which I think we sometimes forget, and turning that into an opportunity for yourself to actually move towards the career that you want to have. I had never heard it phrased quite like that. And I was basing it on my experience, but not understanding that I had to sort of reinvent a wheel for myself. I think that we get fed this idea that there's a way to do things. And if there's any place that that's not true, it's filmmaking specifically, and maybe even plays, and maybe even, anything that becomes a communal thing. We have to have an opportunity to get creative truly every single time. And what Greenlight Yourself was all about was you have more than you think that you have, but you also don't get to do it all by yourself, right? You need to be dependent on the people around you and their skill sets as well to make really incredible art happen. And I think, as the multi-hyphenate that I have become, I'm still hyper aware myself of the things that I'm not good at, right? Of the things that I wish somebody else would do for me, of the things I need to ask for help on. And we had the best time in the room that day going, great, now what do you actually want to do? What are the skills that do you want to be the writer? Do you want to be the actor? Do you want to be the producer? It was amazing to me to have everybody look around and be like, oh, I do only want to do this job or these two jobs or this little small section of the thing, and have someone else be like, I'm desperate to do spreadsheets. That was my favorite moment, right? Yeah. Then someone was like, I really just want to be the organizing force for everybody, and have recognize that, oh yeah, I have the entire group necessary right here without having to pretend that I need to learn a whole bunch of skills that I don't already have.
Yeah. So actually I have my notes from the class.
Our epic notes.
Because I'm a nerd.
Yeah, me too.
You really began with the class with 3 questions to consider. You're like, what is your story? What do you already have? And what do you need? That's like how we began with it. And then we also had several activities throughout the day, like 10 words to describe yourself. Where is your audience? Who is reaching your audience that you need to align yourself with? These like spread out through these days. And so one of the things that I noticed was a lot of us were like, no, we have to do this. Like, no one's going to give us money. No one's going to give us their time and all that stuff. And slowly there was this misconception. And you're like, if you didn't just ask, and 1 or 2 people would be like, I really want to make this film or this short. And one by one, people were like, I'll give you my weekend. I have this weekend free. Do you want to do it? And you're like, see, you thought you had nobody. You have a room full of people who are willing to give you a weekend.
Yeah.
So can you kind of talk about some of these activities, these questions, like how did you figure that out and those misconceptions that allowed you to realize this is a way to greenlight yourself, that you're like, more people should know about this?
Well, I think we have to start with the necessity of defining your value. So many of us who become artists are doing it to explore that question. But if we don't take it as a fact that the way that we explore is unique and special and story-worthy, and therefore a perspective that matters to the world of art and creation and, telling somebody else how to approach the world, that's why I start with, what is the story, right? What is your uniqueness? What is the person that you are that nobody else here does get to be? And then we take it into, right now, look at how special you already are with the things that you already have. And then what are the things you hate more than anything? Are we swearing on this podcast? Is that okay? Can I swear?
I swear, and they tell me not
great.
to, so let's try not to.
We'll try not to. What are the things that you absolutely hate doing? And I do think that we have to identify those too.
Yeah. We don't.
I just saw it yesterday. Reese Witherspoon put out the cutest little Instagram reel thing. And she said, everybody says you're supposed to be chasing your dreams, but actually you're supposed to be chasing your talents. And that's exactly the summary of what I'm trying to say there, right? Is like, if you're really good at writing, but you have no idea where the camera should go, stop pretending you also have to direct the thing. Write the best script you can write. And a director is going to be excited to work with that, who doesn't also want to participate in the writing skills part of it. And so I think that until you separate out which of the puzzle pieces you are right for, right, you're pretending that you can be an entire Rubik's Cube. And I don't have any interest in that. I don't want to be all the colors. I want to be like these three sides of the thing and then create the entire whole with people I adore being around to help support me, right? And we were able to prove in the room that day that not only was that support available, but that you shouldn't be doing the parts of it that you don't already have the skill set to do, felt so incredibly powerful to me. And from there, we took it into another sort of specification exercise, which was the 10 words. And that I was pulling from a branding exercise, right? What are the things that are truly specific about you and a unique way that you see the world and the unique path that you want to take to tell the stories? What are the words that define you? What are the ways that you choose to be seen?
You also said like a film, like a title of a film or a book could count as one of the words, right? So I put Fight Club.
Yeah.
And I remember they were like, really? And I'm like, well, yeah, because I watched it and then I read it when I was 13.
Yeah.
For a 13-year-old girl, that's a huge time change. And I was like, I might not be a 30-year-old man.
Yeah.
Which is what Fight Club takes place in. But I was like, I'm in a identity crisis because I'm going through puberty, I'm getting my period, all that. And then all sorts of, like, I really related to it. And just that kind of thing. But most people won't necessarily think of it that way. And I'm like, well, if you look at the film and the book, it actually is about identity crisis.
Yes.
So that's why I added it into it of people think of it one way, but I kind of look into it a little bit more deeper. Like, and also the fact that I fell in love with the film, that I had to read the book. And I've done that for a few films like that.
Yes. I always try to go the opposite direction. I always try to go, oh, okay, a film is coming. Let me read the source material first and then see how the film interprets the source material. But that's just my fascination with how we're actually putting the things together.
But exactly. And so we didn't have it where like people would be like, oh, I always thought of Anna as this way. No, we didn't really do that because we were all kind of strangers, I think. I didn't think, or I don't know. I was like,
there may have been a couple of people who knew each other a little bit, but that again was the magic that we had in that room. Every single person there was from the area. Every single person there wanted desperately to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And every single person there thought that they were alone when they walked into the room, full of people asking themselves the exact same questions.
Yeah.
And I think especially when you're coming from a smaller market as opposed to the LAs and the New Yorks of it all, where it's assumed that you can make a living as an artist. I spent 20 years in LA sort of grinding through, but the mistakes that I made even there were thinking, okay, there's a way that we should do this. I'll just make myself look like all the other girls. I'll be the prettiest person I can possibly be. And I'm not, I'm a weirdo. Like at heart, I'm like an off the wall, like strange person. And any cuteness that I have is secondary to that fact about me. And so it wasn't until I was like, can I not be living in the world where what we're defined by is our attractiveness level, which was, by the way, something I assigned myself. I don't think it was actually what LA wanted from me. But that stepping outside of the expectation that we think somebody else is applying to us and instead just looking really at the package that we present in all of its magic and all of its weirdness and all of its glory is the way that we then find the people who will fill in the blanks for us, right? Which would literally happen in the room that day.
And now shifting it towards like a real life example, which would be your film, Nora, confession time for me. So we had all day with you and all that stuff. And then at the end of the day, they were like, we're going to watch her film. And you were with us. And I was like, oh, balls. See, I'm trying not to swear.
Oh,
because we were all tired. And I was like, I better not fall asleep. I better not, because I dimmed the lights and all sorts of stuff. I'd be like, okay, I'm watching it. And you're like right next to me or like sort of behind me. And I'm like, pay attention. But it really, you did a great job. And that is in this, and I was just on a long flight and I watched some, I won't say which films, but a couple of Academy Award nominee Best Picture films. And I'm like, good God, get to the point.
Yes.
And I would just keep fast forwarding. I had a 15-hour flight and I kept fast forwarding. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So it's saying something when we do have a lot of art coming at us. You can't please everyone, but considering we're all exhausted, we also have all our own thoughts. We're like, okay, we're pumped. We have our story. What do I like to do? What do I not like to do? Who do I know? And all that stuff. Or the person's like, that weekend, I have 5 people who will help me with that weekend. I got to cancel that dentist appointment, all that stuff. But now everyone was paying attention to your film. That's saying something. And I also checked online and lots of people really loved it. And it is an independent film. So Nora is basically, it's a woman who was a very talented musician, but she, over the years, she got married. She has a daughter who's around 6 and she moves to the suburbs in the Oregon state.
Vaguely suburbsy. I very deliberately did not locate it specifically in time, but we did shoot it in Portland. Yes,
that's why I'm thinking of Portland.
You're not wrong. It feels to me like the important part of the story is you had a dream, you gave up on it to focus on the raising of the child, but her dreams ultimately don't get to give up on her, right? And funny that I'm saying that, and her talents don't ultimately get to give up on her, maybe in the context of our conversation today, right? And so the film ends up being a loose metaphor for a version of my own story, right? I moved back home from 20 years of struggling through my dreams and talents in Los Angeles to Oregon during the pandemic. And we were shooting in 2021 and 2022 when we were just starting to come out and figuring out the protocols for how we could even shoot during, a global crisis, and knowing that art was more important than ever before. And so it was a weird moment where I was actually able to take the limited resources I have and expand them really far because people were really eager to create something. Also interesting to note the number of amazing artists in my local market here who said, oh, you're not just making another horror film, because we have these amazing creepy woods and, and fog and rain all year round. And that was not the part of my environment that I was taking advantage of. I was using my sense of the almost pain or consideration of what it means to return home and and come back to a place that formed you, and using the location as that fundamental truth instead of what they'd spent many, many, many other projects doing. So for many of them, it was an exciting opportunity to do something new and different. Right.
Yeah.
And that was just by telling my own story. That wasn't even by, trying to do something
you found
way out of the box.
That's my story.
Yes.
And
it must be done there. Yeah.
And you did choose, so one of the unique parts was that there's lots of music in it, and there's different forms of music videos. Like there was I was like, oh, it's like going in the back of MTV, TRL.
Yes.
So I remember you used the woods. You did,
yes.
but you're wearing this beautiful red dress, and you're like seeing I don't think it's your daughter. It's like you as a child or something like that in the music video.
It's meant to be she's chasing her child. It does happen to be my other actual daughter in real life. Both of my kids are in the film. So the idea for me I'm an overactive imaginations person, like nobody's business, right? I'm the person who, when I read something, images pop into my head and pictures appear. And I spend hours of my day running scenarios and fantasizing and this. And I let my brain do these things and live in a world where I'm processing through imagery and through music. And there's nothing more powerful to me in processing than the power of music. And I was a musical theater geek growing up. And I pulled myself really far away from that medium in particular, feeling like, oh, I was supposed to take myself more seriously. I also wasn't as good at it as I needed to be a professional musical theater person. And so I think pulling myself away, but I found a way back into a genre that I loved by pulling on this idea that in addition to music, there's this fantasy story that goes along with every song that we hear. And so for Nora, what I didn't, and by the way, I don't know if, I think I said this to you guys, but it seems really important to me that when I first started directing the movie, I thought somebody else was going to come in and direct the music videos. I did not have confidence in my off-the-wall, wacky, crazy ability, even though when my brain spends most of its time there, to be able, as a first-time feature director who hadn't directed music videos specifically before. And so we shot principal photography in 2021. And then I was like trying to figure out, with the very tiny amount of budget that I had left, how I was going to bring in outside directors and let them put their stamp on it. And suddenly realized, oh, this entire thing has come from, Nora's perspective, which really is a version of my own. If I don't direct these, then the story doesn't get told, right? This does not become the same story that I'm trying to tell. And it was only then that I realized that for every single one of the songs that we had already written ahead of time, there were actually tons of images in my head. And then after that, I realized that every single one of those images was me recapturing like an anti-feminist stance. So for example, the very first one that you're talking about, Through the Woods, the spectacular red dress, shot in the woods in Oregon. But I think I was, so the story within the music video is she's walking through the woods with this man. The man is on this red carpet walking through the woods. He takes the lead. He continues up ahead, and she suddenly stops and chooses to go a different direction. She finds her own path, and it isn't carpeted in red carpet, but her dress sort of becomes her own path through this thing. And later I'd be like, oh, that's like every romance novel, except instead of chasing the man through the woods and going off on the adventure, she's chasing her own selfhood. She's chasing her own path and her own desires and her own expectations of herself. And late in the video, she sees him from afar and she's like, oh, he's all the way over there. But now here she is confidently on her own path. Same thing. There's one that's entirely about how we rearrange ourselves with the mannequins, right? So Nora turns herself into a mannequin to try to fit in with the other moms, right? How many of us have felt like we had to rearrange the way we are physically, right? To try to fit in, whether it's wearing the right clothes or trying to lose the weight or any of these terrible, terrible things. And the point of that to me was to smash that idea that was the way to actually become the person you wanted to be. Running Through the Woods is a storybook, right? But instead of chasing the prince through the forest, you're chasing the younger version of yourself and letting her know that she's okay and that, recognizing that she was the freer version of you. And, so every single one of the 6 music videos that are, one's animated and is like reclaiming the Archie stereotypes, right? So, right, the idea of 2 girls fighting over the same guy. No, what if they form a band instead and have their own girl power group, you know? So again, in a world where we're going, what do I actually have to give? We can draw on all of the things that have infected us and the way we think and subvert those things to change the storyline. And so by taking all of these sort of anti-feminist things and turning them into my version of them without ever negating everything that's come before, or the 50s housewife, that's probably still my favorite, where everything looks perfect, but then the camera turns at weird angles and you're suddenly smashing plates and eggs and groceries. And
that's one of my favorites.
right? Like, how do we just destroy this idea that that's who we're supposed to be? That was me doing it for myself as I made the film. Right. Literally convincing myself I had the power to actually do those things by putting them on screen.
So you knew, you're like, okay, I need to direct all of these music videos, and they're going to be slightly different styles, but there's going to be that common element, which is me, right? As Nora, as the writer, as the director, right? And it worked, right? But you also, we kind of touched on, and it was back in the Greenlight yourself of like, if you don't know something or you don't like doing something, like for instance, the animation or the lyrics. I was like, did you write the lyrics? And you're like, no, I didn't. I had a lyricist. The animation was someone very like in London and all that stuff. Yeah. There's one thing that I really liked, and you're like, if you had a favor, you have to be like that. And if they say no, that's the last favor you get to ask them. Yeah. So you have to be confident about that. So I was wondering if you can kind of share, like, if you wanted to share who were the animator and the lyricists and all these other things that you couldn't do or you didn't want to do and you needed someone who would be able to. And you're like, will you do that? Did they say no and you went to somebody else and they said, yeah, you know, that kind of thing, and how that worked?
Yes, 100%. And I think that so even talking about the music videos, let's take it back one step, which was I'm hemming and hawing over how I'm going to get these music videos done. And I'm talking to a couple of people and their ideas aren't quite like sitting right within me. And I spoke to my incredible DP, my director of photography, my cinematographer, Kevin Fletch. And he was like, Anna, just tell me what's in your head already. And I had not said any of these things out loud, by the way. I was like, I don't know. I just feel like it's, you know, it's like a 50s housewife smashing things. And he's like, And I can hear him getting excited about it. And by the way, these are story ideas, but I don't have an idea of how to shoot them. And so for every single one of the random ideas, which was fully formed as a thought process in my head, he said, what if we shot it with this? And he would show me examples and do that. So none of the imagery that happened was without input from my entire team and my incredible art designer, Carrie Jordan, right? She'd be like, what if we just make it really simple and we put one piece of wallpaper behind these guys? It'll keep our costs down, and then I can get us a free refrigerator, and I know a guy we can borrow a car from. So every single one of these was brought together by everybody putting in their little piece of what added to my vision. Same thing with the lyrics. So I have the most amazing relationship with former neighbors of mine in Los Angeles who we're still very close friends with. Their kids are the same age as my kids. And he has been in music, you know, successfully working with bands and touring the country, touring the world. And he just knows the world of music in a way that I don't. And I sat him down and I was like, would you consider writing the songs? And he was like, yeah, sure. And the idea that someone would just be excited to do the thing that they do with effortlessness that is an impossibility to me, right? And yes, I did pay him a ridiculously tiny amount per song to honor the fact that I was asking an artist to do their work, and we co-own all of the music. So please go listen to it so that he makes any money off of this damn thing ever. Either one of us do. But that for somebody else, that was, oh yeah, I know what you need from this song. My favorite version of that was we had pre-recorded everything. We had gotten through all of our, you know, we had all of our temp tracks in place, knowing we would have to go back and do like full-fledged versions of them, but timing absolutely specific. And we shot all of the Mannequins video with the idea that the Mannequins with a song recorded that was like a country western song. We finished it. And I was like, I'm trying to figure out how to make this like, you know, the moment where she like busts out and he's like, oh, it's the wrong song. I was like, sorry? He's like, yeah. Let me just, and he comes back 2 hours later with a punk rock version that fits into the exact same time as the country western, like sort of super relaxed, blah, blah, blah. And instead it's like this like rage machine. And because he looked at the images that we had done and he's like, yeah, the song doesn't match where you are in the story. So he was effortlessly able to go, yeah, that song's great. And actually you do hear the tiny little last bit of that song on the radio when Nora's pulling into the school. So like we just ended up using it someplace else. It wasn't wasted, but also I do love that version of the song. But it's funny to think of it as like, oh, you can pull in another version where everything's calmer, but it's still the same sort of, frustration starting to mount, So nothing ends up going to waste. But to be clear, even though I'm the one driving it and going, wait, this doesn't quite work, it took everybody else's input and everybody else's creativity to get what you actually see on the screen there. I do not take personal credit for it. I take group credit as the leader of letting everybody else's insane talents shine and somehow magically getting the right group of people together to let everybody be their most creative selves. And one of the things that was of extreme benefit to us was the limitations that we had. It was a tiny budget, right? It was a really short shoot period. So each of those music videos is shot in one single day. We had 18 days of shooting for principal photography. It was fast. And so we knew we had to simply get what we wanted to get and walk away. That took me knowing the story intimately to be able to make quick decisions on the fly, with everybody else being like, I have a better idea than the one that you have, being fully embraced. Does that make sense? So it's like,
that totally makes sense. And it's so, going back to your point of, okay, if you don't know how to do something or you don't like doing something, you need to know someone who does.
Yeah.
So your lyricist was like, it's the wrong kind of song. Give me a second.
My musician. Yeah. We worked on a lot of the lyrics together. I would do mediocre lyrics, and then he would find a way to, like, I write in poetry. I'm, sort of a classicist at heart. And so it would be like sort of iambic pentameter with all my Shakespeare training. And he would take it and make it into a pop song. Right. So, with a lot of it, we were able to work together, but on many of them, he was just like, let me just redo this for you. So, but the music itself and the timbre of it and the tone and the beats and all of that, I don't claim any responsibility for that except getting excited when it sounded good. That's it. That's all I get to claim credit for.
Yeah. But at the same time, when you find people and they are top but they believed in your project, because you're like, I can't pay you much.
Yeah.
But
it's such a surreal thing.
You know? And that was going back to like when we were in that workshop and people are busy and they're like, listen, you want to make this short? You want to make this web series? I will be there for you. I'm going to give you this weekend, but I'll be there for you.
Yes.
And that's a fair thing to do because they're giving you their time because they see the passion. So it's not taking anything for granted, but also if they believe in you, you should believe in yourself too, kind of thing.
That is 100% the case. And the confidence that I have today is as a result of watching people trust me to do this project. I want to be clear about that because I think it's an important distinction as a woman. I did not start my career in a place of extreme confidence. I started my acting career in particular really, really, really wanting someone to like me. And that was not a place of power. And I remember at the beginning of this when Kevin Fletch signed on to do it, and when Noah Harmon, my lyricist and musician, signed on to do it, they're like, yeah, well, you're awesome. We believe in you. And when Fletch read the script, he said, this is a story that should be told. So I want to caveat this just a tiny little bit, which is if you have an idea for a project and nobody does jump on, the idea might not yet be fully developed enough. And that's important too. Now, work with the people to develop the idea, right? Now go take it and get to the point where that project is the one that people say, 100%, let's get on board. Let's give you the weekend. Let's give you the 18 days. Let's, do it for $100 a day, right? That's the point that you're trying to get to. And in this case, for this film, it was, I presented something raw and vulnerable, but fully formed. That was a script that had, come into itself fully before I was showing it to the people and had gotten the budget together, right? And I think that if you're finding that you're having trouble getting people to do that, you're probably just not done in the development stage yet. And the development stage is magic, right? You get to show it to people and say, oh, okay, this bit isn't working for you. Don't skip this stage. Don't skip this step. And for me, having read 10,000 scripts before I ever started writing my own certainly meant that I had a leg up when it came to structure and when it came to, how scripts were written in dialogue and how to quickly capture people's attention by simply studying the greats and, reading as much as I could. So don't pretend that you can go from 0 to 800. Take the beautiful time to learn what the difference between 2% and 90% is. But don't you ever stop just because it's not at 100. Yeah. That to me is an important distinction there. If no one's signing on, it's not ready yet. That doesn't mean it's a bad idea. That doesn't mean you suck. That doesn't mean any of those things. That means there's something that you're not quite understanding yet.
That's great advice. The final part that I kind of wanted to touch on, at least, is that the distribution part. Because you talked about, you're like, listen, you're not going to make money or like a return on an investment. Like when people give you money, for instance, you have to be clear and transparent. They're like, you're not going to get money back. But
yeah, it's a gamble, right? So I think that if you believe in art, you're doing it for the sake of the art. And our responsibility as the creators are to do everything we can to get it into as many hands as possible, in front of as many eyeballs as possible. And I'm not disappointed with the efforts that I made to make sure that tickets were sold. But we must be realistic about what the state of the industry is right now. And it has never been harder to get people to buy tickets to things, to get people to go to unique platforms for things. And, as we're seeing with Netflix trying to buy Warner Brothers and Paramount going to the Ellisons and all of this shrinking that's happening. Let me back it up just a tiny little second. This happens over and over again in particularly this creative industry, right? As commerce starts to take over, the art has trouble rising to the top, but then the commerce gets too big and it drops. We saw this with the collapse of the studio system, which led to the insane power of the independent cinema scene in the 70s. And I think that we're seeing the exact same thing right now. When commerce becomes king, right? No one is knocking what Netflix is doing. Go make a bunch of money. Sorry, I started to swear again there, right? Go make a bunch of money and see if, and lots of people are going to just go take your stuff that's described as free content because they're already just paying for the subscription. That's the equivalent of movies of the week. That's the equivalent of, network television at this point. We've changed the dynamic of what the structure is. But after that commerce peaks and people get bored with seeing the same thing over and over again, art has a chance to rise. And that's where the unique voices get to come back to the surface. So we have not yet solidified what the distribution models will be for how art is going to rise to the surface in the future. But that doesn't mean it's not coming. And that doesn't mean it ain't worth doing. That's where the important stories are being told, right? So no part of me is saying I'm never going to work for Netflix. I would love to just go make easy money and explore and play with those guys in that huge sandbox where you just get to make some stuff. But the stories that intrigue me and the stories that interest me are always going to be the ones with sort of an intense artistic value and way too much feeling under it. That's a limited audience. That's going to be a different group of people than our parents who watch NCIS and CIS shows I love being on, because what an amazing day on set with creative people and fantastic catering. We're not pretending that those are the same thing. And I think that's the distinction. So when I had to approach distributing my film, the question was, what is the state of the film festival scene today? How many festivals is it worth it to do? What are the connections that I can make in taking this film around to places where I'm spending my marketing dollars to bring the film to other communities, versus is there a way that I can put my film directly in front of those communities and collect the ticket sales myself? Both are uphill battles, right? Both have positives and negatives. You do need to spend several $1,000s to get yourself to a film festival across the country. But you also are going to spend marketing dollars to try to convince people in Austin who don't have a festival telling them this movie is worth seeing that they should go see your film, right? So when we're making those decisions about distribution, it's less about making sure you make your money back than it is about how many people can I convince that this product has the value, and how many people who need this story can I get to embrace the thing that I've made. Is that distinction?
That totally makes sense. Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to share about either Greenlight yourself, Nora, the film industry, art?
I think it's significant that the first film that I made was a film of self-discovery. I think that art is a place where we're asking questions of ourselves, of our community, of the world that we live in, about what we want from it, and what we want for ourselves from it, and what we want for our communities from the questions being asked. And so not asking those questions with the state of the world today is a problem. And if we're asking it in the context of making something preferably beautiful that people love to look at, right? Preferably special that people love to hear, let's just not spend any time questioning the value of that pursuit. That's where humanity comes together. That's where we find common ground. And art has always had that purpose. And now is the best time for it. Ooh, that was a rant right there. I mean, I feel so passionately that now is the time for art, and make it however you can. I think that's what I'd like to leave us
in
with.
ways it has been easier. We discussed it. I was like, you just need your phone. Like anyone could make a film, make art, basically.
Yes.
So, very well said.
Aww.
People can find out more about how to watch your film at norathemovie.com.
Yep.
Is there anywhere else that you would like to share? I can put it also in the show notes.
Shout out to Veeps.com that still is hosting the ability to see the movie. Incredible partner for me to be able to work with. It's primarily a live music distribution apparatus. And they were like, this movie fits in exactly with the people who love music and love what it does for them. So it's still available on Veeps, and also available for rental on Amazon, and hopefully on the other platforms as soon as we can get it. But for sure, classic places that you'll be able to rent or buy the film.
Yes, thank you so much. And until next time for listeners. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Media Maker Spotlight from Women in Film and Video. To learn more about WIF, visit F as in Frank, V as in Victor.org. This podcast is produced by Sandra Abrams, Candace Block, Brandon Ferry, Tara Jabbari, and Jerry Reinhardt, and edited by Michelle Kim, with audio production and mix by Steve Lack Audio and Ed Saltzman. Subscribe to continue learning from more amazing media makers. Please visit MediaMakersSpotlight.com for more information.